Across the Philippines, classrooms tell very different stories. Some are alive with the energy of bright-eyed students, buzzing with curiosity, and equipped with modern facilities that spark learning. Others face crowded rooms, limited resources, and obstacles that make every lesson a challenge. Behind every school, every classroom conversation, and every opportunity to grow, there lies a framework of laws and policies, the legal foundations of education. These laws are far more than words on paper. They protect the right to learn, set standards for schools and teachers, and ensure the rights of every student are upheld. Understanding these foundations give us a clearer view of where we stand as a nation, why education matters, and how we can work together to bring quality learning to every Filipino, in every classroom and community. With that, warm greetings to everyone. Welcome to today's discussion on the legal basis of education, where we will explore the laws and policies that shape and safeguard learning in the Philippines.
Education in the Philippines is guided by several laws that show the government's strong commitment to educate its people. These legal bases emphasize that it is the duty of the state to provide quality and accessible education for all. By taking this responsibility, the government ensures that education becomes a tool for personal growth, social progress, and national development. Through these laws and policies, every Filipino is given the opportunity to learn, develop their potential, and contribute to building a better nation. Now let's start discussing the major laws, the legislative frameworks behind our educational system. Are you now ready? So let's start. So here are the laws that govern and guide our education system. First, we have the Philippine Constitution of 1987. Second, Educational Decree of 1972, otherwise known as Presidential Decree number 6-A. Third, the Educational Act of 1982, otherwise known as Batas Pambansa bilang 232. And lastly, we have the Educational Act of 1994, otherwise known as Republic Act number 7722. What is in the 1987 Constitution that governs or help establish our educational system? We have Article 14. So Article 14 focuses on education, science and technology, arts, culture, and sports. So it lays down the state policies and responsibilities in ensuring that every Filipino has access to quality education, that scientific and technological development is promoted, and that arts and culture, together with sports, are supported as integral parts of nation building. Section 1 states that the government must protect and promote every citizen's right to quality education and make it accessible to all. So it is the duty of the government to protect and promote the rights of its citizen to quality and accessible education. This is the top mission of the Department of Education, as stated in its mission statement, to protect and promote the right of every Filipino to quality, equitable, culture-based, and complete basic education. To fulfill its mission, here comes Section 2. So it is stated that number 1, the state must build a complete and relevant education system. Quality education means a complete and relevant education. So this is one of the reasons that the government, through the Department of Education, has revisions, enhancements, even changes in its curriculum as years pass. One way of ensuring that education is relevant to its citizens. Also, to make education accessible to all, the state must provide free elementary and high school education, especially in elementary since it is compulsory. So another one, the state must offer scholarships and financial aid to deserving and poor students. So another one, in helping the learners, the state must offer the scholarships and financial aids to deserving and economically disadvantaged learners. So one of the program of the government today is the 4Ps. Continuing section 2, we have number 4. The state must support non-formal and informal education, so like community-based learning. So we have our alternative learning system or the ALS. So in every barangay, there is a community learning centers or CLCs. Now we have also provide training and skills for adults, the disabled, and out of school youth. Now let's continue in section number 3. So education must, number 1, include the study of the Constitution. Next, the education must teach patriotism, nationalism, moral values, and critical thinking. It must also allow optional religious instruction in public schools if parents approve. So in section 4, it is stated that both public and private schools play important roles in education. Next, the ownership of schools here in the Philippines should be mostly by Filipinos. The non-profit schools are tax exempt if it is used for educational purposes. And the donations for education are also tax-free. Now let's have section 5. First, education planning must consider local and regional needs. Number 2, academic freedom belongs to colleges and universities. Third, students can choose their course or profession freely. Number 4, teachers have the right to professional growth and protection. The education sector gets the biggest share of the national budget. So we have the biggest share in the national budget. So let's continue in section 6. So the national language is Filipino, which shall continue to develop and be used in communication and education. Section 7 states that the official languages are Filipino and English. Regional languages can be used locally, while Spanish and Arabic are promoted voluntarily. In Section 8, the Constitution must be written in Filipino and English and translated into other major languages. Now let's have Section 9. So what do we have in Section 9? So it states that the state will promote science and technology as essential. It is important for our national progress. In Section 10, it states that the state must give importance to science and technology for our national progress, and it must support research, innovation, and local inventions. In Section 11, the Congress may establish a Department of Science and Technology, which we have it right now, to strengthen scientific research and development. So let's have Section 12. So it states that the state must regulate the transfer and the use of technology to ensure it benefits the nation and it supports Filipino inventors. In Section 13, the state must protect and secure the rights of the scientists, the inventors, artists, and other gifted citizens to their intellectual property and creations. Now let's have Section 14. So in Section 14, it states that the state will promote and develop a national culture that values unity in diversity and supports freedom of art and thought. In Section 15, the state must support and promote the arts and it must preserve our national heritage and culture. In Section 16, all artistic and historical treasures of our country, of our nation, are protected and must be protected by our state. Section 17, the state will encourage cultural exchanges with other nations and promote the appreciation of world cultures. Now we have Section 16. It states that all artistic and historical treasures of the country are protected by our government. Section 17. The state will encourage cultural exchanges with other nations and promote the appreciation of world cultures. Now let's have Section 19. It states that the state must promote physical education and sports to build discipline, teamwork, and excellence. Schools should organize regular sports activity with communities. So that's why we have our intramural meet and other higher athletic meets in our schools. Along with Article 14 of the 1987 Constitution, we also have this one. Article 2, Section 12, which states that the natural and primary right and duty of parents in rearing of the youth for civic efficiency and the development of moral character shall receive the support of our government. Now let's discuss another legal basis or legal foundation of our educational system, and that is the Educational Act of 1972, or also known as Presidential Decree number 6-A. So Presidential Decree number 6-A was issued last September 29, 1972. So it is authorizing the undertaking of educational development projects, providing for the mechanics of implementation and financing thereof, and for other purposes. So it is the Educational Development Decree of 1972. So what are the goals of the educational system? As stated in Section 2, A to C. First, it must promote rapid economic and social progress. Next, it must ensure that everyone benefits and takes part in the development. And lastly, it must build national unity and uphold positive cultural values amid change. So now let's talk about the objectives of the educational system as stated in Section 3, A to D. So the educational system aims to, first, promote rapid national development and social progress. Next, it must ensure that all people take part in and benefit from the development. Third, strengthen national identity and uphold our positive cultural values. And lastly, it must train citizens to become self-reliant, productive, and committed to the improvement of the Philippine society. So this decree contains a 10-year program to attain its objectives, so as stated in Section 4, A to F. So in order to lay the foundation and to advance the attainment of these objectives, a 10-year National Education Development Program was formulated based on the following. So the decree outlines a 10-year education development plan designed to, first, expand access to education at all levels. Next, improve the quality and relevance of instruction. Next, provide better teacher training and support. Next, we have develop technical and vocational education to meet manpower needs. Strengthen research, planning, and educational administration. And lastly, improve physical facilities and learning materials to support effective learning. Now let's talk about the educational projects to attain the objectives. So it is stated in section 5, A to G. So this section outlines the government's plan to improve the education system through various development projects. So this include, first, improving the management and administration of Department of Education and Culture. So that was before, Department of Education and Culture, but today we have the Department of Education. Next, establishing and upgrading secondary schools and technical or vocational training centers. Next, enhancing curriculum and teacher development, especially in math and science. Also, to attain the objectives, there must be expanding in agricultural education and training programs. Developing instructional technology, the textbooks, and the learning materials. And providing financial assistance and incentives to improve public and private schools and universities. Now let's talk about the working arrangement to attain the objectives. So this section, section 6, establishes an education special committee to ensure that the goals of the decree are properly carried out. The special committee oversee, evaluate, and fund educational projects efficiently and responsibly. Now, let's talk about the National Board of Education as stated in Section 6, Paragraph 3. So it states that the decree mandates the creation or utilization of an Office of Planning and Research named the Planning Service. So this planning service is situated within the Department of Education and Culture. So the role is to assist the National Board of Education in carrying out the board's functions, which include formulating education objectives, policies, and providing guidelines under Section 6. So essentially, this gives the planning service a supportive and technical research role, helping the board with policy planning, data, research, evaluation, so that the education development objectives of the decree can be met. So let's continue our discussion about the National Board of Education. So this part now states that to effectively carry out education development objectives, the National Board of Education may establish advisory committees. So the board may create advisory or technical committees composed of experts and representatives from both the public and private sectors to study specific educational issues. So these committees will help review educational programs and recommend policies and strategies to improve planning, curriculum, teacher development, and the use of resources. So its purpose is to strengthen educational planning and decision making through expert consultation and collaboration. Lastly, this paragraph explains that the board may request for assistance from any government agency or office, and all such agencies are required to cooperate with the National Board of Education and provide necessary information or support. Its purpose is simply to ensure interagency coordination so that the educational reforms are supported by all branches and levels of our government. Now let's talk about financing the whole educational system, as stated in Section 7 to 17. Section 7 is about educational development projects. So it authorizes the creation of priority education projects like school building programs, curriculum reform, and teacher training to improve the access and the quality of education. Let's have Section 8, which talks about financing and foreign assistance. So it allows the government to secure foreign loans or assistance to fund educational developmental projects and improve school facilities and programs. In Section 9, it talks about the Educational Development Fund. So it creates a special fund dedicated to educational programs and projects to ensure continuous financing for reforms and development efforts. Continuing in Section 10, which talks about administration of the fund. So the Department of Education and Culture, now DepEd, is tasked to manage and allocate the Educational Development Fund properly and efficiently. In Section 11, which talks about authority to enter contracts, the Secretary of Education and Culture is authorized to enter into contracts and agreements that also includes the foreign assisted projects to implement education programs. In Section 12, it talks about tax exemption. So it provides tax exemptions for the materials, equipment, books, and other items imported or used for educational development projects funded by the decree. In Section 13, talks about donations and contributions. So it encourages donations from private individuals and organizations for education projects. Such donations, of course, are tax deductible as an incentive. Section 14 talks about the government support. So it directs all government agencies to support and assist educational development programs as part of the national development. Section 15 talks about rules and regulations. So it authorizes the Secretary of Education and Culture to issue implementing rules and regulations for carrying out the decree. Now let's move on to another legal basis, and that is the Educational Act of 1982 or Batas Pambansa bilang 232. Alright, now let's start discussing Batas Pambansa bilang 232. And to start, let's have its policy and goals as stated in Section 3. So it states there that education as a right and duty. So education is recognized as a fundamental human right and a duty of our state. It must be accessible to all citizens, regardless of background, and should develop the full potential of every individual. Education for national development. Education should contribute to national development. It must contribute to our national development. It must foster a love for country, teach respect for human rights, promote responsible citizenship, and help individuals become a productive member of the society. It also states the role of the schools. So schools, both the public and the private, are vital to the nation's educational system. They should work together with the home and the community to foster moral character, discipline, and civic responsibility. Batas Pambansa bilang 232 also discusses the right to relevant quality education. So it states there that education should promote the national development. It must help in building a peaceful, just, and productive society by first developing responsible and committed citizens, instilling patriotism and love of country, promoting moral integrity and discipline, and lastly, preparing people to contribute to economic and social progress. This decree also emphasized the right of cultural communities to develop themselves within the context of their cultures. So the state shall promote the right of every individual to relevant quality education, regardless of sex, age, creed, socioeconomic status, physical and mental condition, racial or ethnical origin, or even the political and other affiliation. So education must be accessible to all Filipinos without discrimination. No one should be denied of education just because of poverty, disability, religion, ethnicity, or beliefs. About the objectives of education as stated in Section 4. First, provide a broad general education that will help each individual, meaning to say it must attain his potentials as a human being and enhance the quality of the human life. Next, objective is to train the nation's manpower in the middle level skills required for our national development. Third, develop the professions that will provide the leadership for the nation, meaning it must advance knowledge through scientific research, apply new knowledge for improving the quality of life. And lastly, it must respond effectively to changing needs and conditions for the nations or of the nation through a system of educational planning and evaluation. Of course, here are the values to teach, as stated in Section 4, Paragraph 2. First, towards the realization of these objectives and pursuant to the Constitution, all institutions shall aim to inculcate love of country. First value to teach is love of country. Next, teach the duties of citizenship and develop moral character, personal discipline, and scientific, technological, and vocational efficiency. Decree also tries to point out the importance of reaching out the deprived communities. So the educational system shall reach out to educationally deprived communities in order to give meaningful reality to their membership in this national society, to enrich their civic participation in the community and the national life, and to unify all Filipinos into a free and just nation. About the Declaration of Policy and Objectives. as stated in Section 5, 1 to 4. First, aid and support the natural right and duty of parents in the rearing of the youth through the educational system. Second, promote and safeguard the welfare and interests of the students by defining their rights and obligations, privileges, and encouraging the establishment of sound relationships between them and other members of the school community. In addition to that, it must promote the social and economic status of all school personnel, uphold their rights, define their obligations, and improve their living and working conditions and career prospects. Extend support to promote the viability of those institutions through which parents, students, and school personnel seek to attain their educational goals. Let's talk about the members and elements of the educational community as stated in Section 6, 1 to 4. First, we have parents, or the guardians, or the head of the institution or the foster home, which has custody of the pupil or student. Next, students, or those enrolled in and who regularly attend an educational institution of secondary or higher level, or a person engaged in formal study. We also have pupils, are those who regularly attend a school of elementary level under the supervision and tutelage of a teacher. Next, we have the school personnel, or all persons working for an educational institution, which includes the following: teaching or academic staff, or all persons engaged in actual teaching and or research assignments, either on full-time or part-time basis, in all levels of the educational system. Next, the school administrators, or all persons occupying policy implementing positions having to do with the functions of the school in all levels. Next, we have the academic non-teaching personnel. These refer to persons including or holding some academic qualifications and performing academic functions directly supportive of teaching, such as registrars, librarians, guidance counselors, researchers, research assistants, research aides, and other similar staff. We also have the non-academic personnel, or all other school personnel not falling under the definition and coverage of teaching and academic staff, school administrators, and academic non-teaching personnel. We also have the schools. So these are institutions recognized by the state which undertake educational operations. Now let's talk about the community participation as stated in Section 7. So, every educational institution shall provide for the establishment of appropriate bodies through which the members of the educational community may discuss the relevant issues and communicate information and suggestions for assistance and support of the school and for the promotion of their common interests. Representatives from each subgroup of the educational community shall sit and participate in these bodies, the rules and procedures of which must be approved by them, and it must be duly published. Now let's talk about the rights of the parents as stated in section 8, 1 to 2. So the rights of the parents. So in addition to other rights, under existing laws, all parents who have their children enrolled in a school shall have the following rights. First, they have the right to organize by themselves and or with the teachers for the purpose of providing a forum for the discussion of matters relating to the total school program and for ensuring the full cooperation of the parents and teachers in the formulation and efficient implementation of such programs. So we have it right now, what we call the Parents-Teacher Association. Now, another right is the right to access to any official record directly relating to the children who are under their parental responsibility. So the parents have the right to access any official record like SF9, SF10. So directly relating to their children who are under their parental responsibility. Now let's talk about the rights of students in the school as stated in section 9, 1 to 9. First, they have the right to receive primarily through competent instruction, relevant and quality education in line with the national goals and conducive to their full development as persons with a human dignity. Next, the students have the right to freely choose their field of study subject to existing curricula and to continue their course therein up to graduation, except in cases of academic deficiency or if there are violations or disciplinary regulations. Another right of the students is the right to school guidance and counseling services. This helps them in decision making and selecting alternatives in the field of work suited to their potentialities. The students also have the right of access to his own school records, the confidentiality of which the school shall maintain and be preserved. Next, the right to the issuance of official certificates, diplomas, transcript of records, grades, transfer credentials, and other similar documents within 30 days from request. Next, the right to publish a student newspaper and similar publications, as well as the right to invite resource persons during the assemblies, symposia, and other activities of similar nature. The students has also the right to free expression of opinions and suggestions, and to effective channels of communication with appropriate academic and administrative bodies of the school or institution. They have also the right to form, establish, join, and participate in organizations and societies recognized by the school to foster their intellectual, cultural, spiritual, and physical growth and development, or to form, establish, join, and maintain organizations and societies for purposes not contrary to the law. Next, the right to be free from involuntary contributions, except those approved by their own organizations or societies. Now let's talk about the rights of all school personnel as stated in Section 10, 1 to 4. First, the right to free expression of opinion and suggestions, and to effective channels of communications with appropriate academic and administrative bodies of the school or institution. They also have the right to be provided with free legal service by the appropriate government office. In the case of public school personnel and through the school authorities concerned in the case of private school personnel, when charged in an administrative, civil, and/or criminal proceedings by parties other than the school or regulatory authorities concerned for actions committed directly in the lawful discharge of professional duties and or in defense of school policies. They also have the right to establish, join, and maintain labor organizations and or professional and self-regulating organizations of their choice to promote their welfare and defend their interests. They also have the right to be free from involuntary contributions, except those imposed by their own organizations. Now let's talk about the special rights and or the privileges of the teaching or academic staff as stated in Section 11, 1 to 4. First, they have the right to be free from compulsory, mandatory assignments not related to their duties, as defined in their appointments or their employment contracts, unless they are compensated therefor, conformably to existing law. Next, they have the right to intellectual property, consistent with the applicable laws. The teachers shall be deemed persons in authority when in the discharge of lawful duties and responsibilities and shall therefore be accorded due respect and protection. Next, the teachers shall be accorded the opportunity to choose alternative career lines, either in school administration, in school teaching, or others for purposes of career advancement. Now let's talk about the special rights of school administration rather. So school administrators shall, in accordance with existing laws, regulations, and policies of the Ministry of Education, Culture, and Sports, be accorded sufficient administrative discretion necessary for the efficient and effective performance of their functions. The school administrators shall be deemed persons in authority while in the discharge of lawful duties and responsibilities, and shall therefore be accorded also with due respect and protection. Now let's talk about the rights of schools, as stated in Section 13. So in addition to other rights provided for by the law, schools shall enjoy the following. First, the right of their governing boards or lawful authorities to provide for the proper governance of the school and to adopt and enforce administrative or management systems. Next, the school has the right for institutions of higher learning to determine on academic grounds who shall be admitted to study, who may teach, and what shall be subjects of the study and research. Now let's proceed to Chapter 3, where we'll be dealing with the duties and obligations. the duties of the parents, the duties and responsibilities of students, the teacher's obligations, the school administrator's obligations, obligations of the academic non-teaching personnel. So let's start. Now let's talk about the duties of the parents. So first, the parents, individually or collectively, through the school systems, shall help carry out the educational objectives in accordance with national goals. Second, parents shall be obliged to enable their children to obtain elementary education and shall strive to enable them to obtain secondary and higher education in the pursuance of the right formation of the youth. Third, parents shall cooperate with the school in the implementation of the school program, curricular and co-curricular. Now let's have the duties and responsibilities of the students. So in addition to those provided for under existing laws, every student shall, number one, exert his utmost to develop his potentialities for service, particularly by undergoing an education suited to his abilities in order that he may become an asset to his family and to the society. Next, uphold the academic integrity of the school. Endeavor to achieve academic excellence and abide by the rules and regulations governing his academic responsibilities and moral integrity. Now let's talk about the teacher's obligations. First, perform his duties to the school by discharging his responsibilities in accordance with the philosophy, goals, and objectives of the school. Next, be accountable for the efficient and effective attainment of specified learning objectives in pursuance of national development goals within the limits of available school resources. Next, the teacher is obliged to render regular reports on performance of each student and to the latter and the latter's parents and guardians with specific suggestions for improvements. In addition to the teacher's obligation is to assume the responsibility to maintain and sustain his professional growth and advancement and maintain professionalism in his behavior at all times. Next, teacher must refrain from making deductions in students' scholastic rating for acts that are clearly not manifestation of poor scholarship. Next, the teacher must participate as an agent of constructive, social, economic, moral, intellectual, cultural, and political change in his school and the community within the context of national policies. Now let's talk about the school administrator's obligations. First, perform his duties to the school by discharging his responsibilities in accordance with the philosophy, goals, and objectives of the school. Number 2, be accountable for the efficient and effective administration and management of the school. Next, develop and maintain a healthy school atmosphere conducive to the promotion and preservation of academic freedom and effective teaching and learning, and to harmonious and progressive school-personnel relationship. Next, assume and maintain professional behavior in his work and in dealing with students, teachers, academic non-teaching personnel, administrative staff, and the parents or the guardians. Next, render adequate reports to teachers, academic non-teaching personnel, and non-academic staff on their actual performance in relation to their expected performance and counsel them on ways of improving the same. Next, observe due process, fairness, promptness, privacy, constructiveness, and consistency in disciplining his teachers and other personnel. And maintain adequate records and submit required reports to the Ministry of Education, Culture, and Sports. Now let's talk about the obligations of academic non-teaching personnel. First, we have improve himself professionally by keeping abreast of the latest trends and techniques in his profession. Next, assume, promote, and maintain an atmosphere conducive to service and learning. Next is to promote and maintain an atmosphere conducive to service and to learning. Now let's talk about the formal education. So formal education is a structured and step-by-step learning system provided in schools where students must meet certain requirements to move to higher levels. It has three main stages. First, the elementary education. The first compulsory stage that provides basic education, usually covering 6 to 7 years, including preschool. Next level is the secondary education. It follows elementary level and continues basic education while teaching practical and employable skills, usually over 4 years of high school. But now, this time we have 6 years. That includes 4 years in junior high school and 2 years in senior high school. And lastly, next level is the tertiary education. So higher education after high school that leads to a college or university degree in a chosen field or profession. Now let's talk about the objectives of elementary education. Elementary education aims to, first, develop the learner's basic knowledge, skills, values, and attitudes needed for personal growth and participation in a changing society. So elementary education also aims to help the child become aware of social changes, of what is happening around him, and challenges, and prepare them to take part productively in the society. So it also aims to strengthen the child's love for the country and sense of national identity. It also aims to provide meaningful work experiences that build creativity, responsibility, and readiness for productive and honest work in the future. Now let's proceed to the objectives of the secondary education. First, to continue developing the knowledge, skills, and values that were gained during the elementary education. Next, help students discover and improve their interests and abilities, preparing them either for productive work or for further education in college level. Now let's proceed to the objectives of tertiary education. First, to provide a general education program that will promote national identity, cultural consciousness, and moral integrity and spiritual vigor. Next, to train the nation's manpower in the skills required for national development. Next, to develop the professions that will provide leadership for the nation. And lastly, to advance knowledge through research work and apply new knowledge for improving the quality of human life and responding effectively to changing societal needs and conditions. Now let's talk about the specialized educational service. So what is this? So the state further recognizes its responsibility to provide, within the context of formal education system, services to meet special needs of certain clientele. These specific types, which shall be guided by the basic policies of the state embodied in the general provisions of this act, include: number 1, work education; number 2, a specialized education; and number 3, non-formal education. So these are the specialized educational services. Now let's talk about work education or practical arts first. So what is work education or practical arts? Simply, it is a program of basic education which aims to develop the right attitudes towards work, and the technical vocational education, post-secondary but non-degree programs leading to 1, 2, or 3-year certificates in preparation for a group of middle-level occupations. Number 2, the special education, the education of persons who are physically, mentally, emotionally, socially, or culturally different from the so-called normal individuals, that they require modification of school practices, services to develop them to their maximum capacity. There you go. And the last one is the non-formal education. So non-formal education is any organized school-based educational activities undertaken by the Ministry of Education, Culture and Sports and other agencies aimed at attaining specific learning objectives for a particular clientele, especially the illiterates and the out-of-school youth and adults, distinct from and outside the cultural offerings of the formal school system. So it can be the ALS. So as you can see in the illustrations, in the work education or practical arts, we have the TESDA. In the special education, now we have SPED, or in DepEd, we also have special needs education, or SNED. Then we have the non-formal education, or DLs. Now let's talk about the objectives of non-formal education. First, to eradicate illiteracy and to raise the level of functional literacy of the population. Next, to provide unemployed and underemployed youth and adults with appropriate vocational, technical skills to enable them to become more productive and effective citizens. And to develop among the clientele of non-formal education proper values and attitudes necessary for personal, community, and national development. Now let's talk about the establishment of schools. Schools must be created according, of course, to the law. New national schools can only be established, and existing schools can only be upgraded to national secondary or tertiary schools through a law passed for that purpose. Private schools must be organized as non-stock educational corporations under the Corporation Code of the Philippines, except for family-run preschool institutions, which may be exempted from this requirement. So the government assistance to such schools for educational programs shall be used exclusively for that purpose, for that educational purpose. Now let's have some definition of terms. So the terms used in this chapter are defined as follows. First, schools. Schools are duly established institutions of learning or educational institutions. Number 2, Public schools. These are educational institutions established and administered by the government. Number 3, private schools. These are educational institutions maintained and administered by private individuals or groups.